Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Community Circle. Our focus today, our theme is surfing the divine fractal. I'm looking forward to sharing an experience of that with you. It's wonderful to be back with you live again. Just a quick announcement. This is the final week that I'm going to be live streaming on the Facebook platform. Happy to explore why in greater depth if there are questions about that. But going forward, our live stream, our community gathering each week is going to be exclusively on YouTube. And I think I may also simulcast on Twitter as well. So if you haven't already, I really invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a bit.ly link in the description of the video. Whether you're on the YouTube platform or not, you can click the link and click the bell to be notified and all that excitement. In any case, before we have a conversation or explore anything or really even talk about spirituality, let's take a moment and just come into a space of inner resonance. Let's take some time to open that inner place, that centered, grounded, present place that exists within us all the time, no matter what's going on in the world or our lives or any other place. And I can see there are already folks that are checking in, and I will acknowledge and say hi here in just a few minutes. For everyone who's on the live stream, the only way for me to say hi to you and acknowledge you by name is to comment. And if you're on the YouTube stream, let me see if I can point the right direction. I think it's over here. The comments are over here. And if you're on the Facebook stream, it's below. And as I say, if you missed it, this is the last live stream on Facebook. I'm moving everything over onto YouTube. Okay, before we do anything else, before I acknowledge and thank and so on, and just go exploring wherever the conversation wants to lead us today, let's sink in a little bit, shall we? And so I invite you to close your eyes, begin breathing in and out through your nostrils. As always, I just want to remind you, please don't operate a motor vehicle or heavy equipment of any sort during this or any time we're together. As you may have experienced, it's not safe to do so because you just never know when you're going to drop out, or some people call it going to sleep. It's just what happens when we're in transmission together. And you'll know we're in transmission formally when I say the words, let's begin. That wasn't it. But there is always a transmission that exists between you and the divine, that innate connection that exists within you. And I believe one of the ways that the divine, that God expresses through me, is to enliven that inner connection within you. So if you are doing something else, even if you're just tippity tapping, typing away on your computer, I just invite you to stop that and be present with whatever follows. Eyes closed, breathing in and out through the nostrils. Then let's do a little bit of breathing, and then we'll meditate for a little bit together, and then we'll open into transmission, begin exploring your questions, and then we'll go into a deeper transmission and surf that wave, that divine fractal that expresses in every one and everything fully, including all of us without exception. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Okay, deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before in this day. And as you do, I just invite you to let go of all the thoughts that have been dominant in your mind of late, all the way out to the count of 8. And as you're releasing that breath, I just want to remind you, the reason we're letting go is because that opens up a more complete space, a void, if you will, for the divine to express more fully in you and through you and as you. And so you may actually begin feeling or experiencing physical or intuitive, intellectual, emotional resonance just kind of pouring into your body or into your field, into your awareness spontaneously as we're breathing and doing meditation. That's beautiful if that begins happening. If it doesn't, don't worry, you're not doing something wrong. from my perspective, it's a beautiful way of reinforcing that what we're doing is opening up to an experience that's already within you. It's not something I'm installing in you. I'm not doing anything to you to open to this experience. I'm merely witnessing. I'm opening up to the divine in me as we open up to that in all of us. And nothing could be more clear when we're just meditating. I haven't even really connected in energetically yet. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, again out to the count of 8, I just invite you to let go of everything that has come before since the first of the year, all the way out to the count of 8. And as you do, the emotions and the thoughts now, if you can release both, that have been dominant. And here's the interesting thing, out to the count of 8, some people think, well, I'll let go of all the negative stuff or what we perceive as negative or what you perceive as negative. I'm encouraging you to let go of everything because that fountain of divine presence is waiting to more fully express through you on every level of your being, in every aspect of your life, in every aspect of the world. And the degree to which I'm holding on to control or you're holding on to control, which could come in the form even of an attachment to an idea you're excited about or a good feeling that you're having. Oh, yeah, this is it. This is who I am. I want my day to be like this. Even that could get in the way of a more complete expression of divine presence as you. So when you let go, it's up to you, of course. I invite you to let go of everything within the container. And actually, you could just ignore what I'm saying with words if you want. The words are just there if they're helpful. If they're not helpful, you can actually mute the the live stream. You can mute the replay of the video if you're watching on the replay. The words don't matter. I actually did that a couple of weeks ago. I muted by accident. I don't know what's happening there. I looked up and opened my eyes and the camera went out. It looks like it's back now. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born, all the way out to the count of 8. And with this now, the thoughts, the feelings, and also the dominant manner of being, releasing all of that, that you may open more fully to divine presence, all the way out to the count of 8. Hmm. I promise I'll check in here in just a few minutes with all the wonderful people who are saying hi. I will respond. Thank you for being here. It's such an honor to sit with you, to sink in. Hmm. Another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul, all the way out to the count of 8. Nice and slow, if you can. Whatever tempo is great, whatever's showing up for you, just feel it fully. If there are thoughts that keep pushing into your mind, it's fine. Just be with them. You don't have to try to clear out any ideas. The invitation as you release the breath is to let go, but you don't have to push stuff away. It's not a forceful movement. If you want an idea of the energy, think of some water that's moving down a very gentle hill. It's just finding its way. Maybe it's in a stream bed. Maybe it's a couple of teeny tiny little streams of water that eventually are going to gather into a larger stream and eventually a river. And they might be flowing down this hill very slowly, and they might be taking all these different routes. And eventually the water's going to find its way to the bottom of the hill. Think of it that way as you're breathing and opening up and just sitting with yourself. Whatever is coming up within you is perfect. Whatever is arising in your emotions, in your body, in your mind, it's all perfect. Just be with it as fully as you can. And still, if it's comfortable for you with your eyes closed, just become aware in your mind's eye. Maybe it's your imagination or on the intuitive screen of your awareness. If none of these things make sense to you, just imagine, visualize, or just listen to the words and let them be whatever they are for you. There's no way you can mess this up. There's no way you can get it right. Just to be with it however it is for you. Okay? If it's comfortable, eyes closed, and just notice this back of the breath. There's another unit of breath, and it comes in as well. It's beautiful. And that breath is just serving you. It has no other focus or purpose. And as the breath comes in, there's no criteria or condition. It's not checking off a list. What have you done today? Have you prayed? What do you believe? What are your political beliefs? What's your sexual or gender orientation, your ethnicity, the color of your skin? None of it matters. It's just coming in to serve you fully. And then notice again in this intuitive screen, this color beginning to infuse itself through the breath, through the cue, almost like a food coloring, a dropper that's dropped into a pitcher of water. It just spreads of its own accord. The color might be fixed or dynamic. It might be changing. And if you're assigning a color with your imagination, perhaps pick one that's not normally present in your body, except perhaps in your eyes. And then just notice as that cue of breath just becomes infused with this color. And then on the next in breath, whenever that is, be with the breath from the perspective of the color. There's the color moving in up through the nostrils and then up to the crown of the head and then down into the lungs. And if you can, just sit in the lungs in your mind's eye and your awareness, and maybe even begin moving time forward just a little bit faster, very gently. And notice that that color just comes in and begins to infuse itself into the interior lining of the lungs. And then eventually it moves through the lining of the lungs into the bloodstream. And then eventually into each and every cell in your body. And there's a simple statement, a conclusion we can draw here. And I want you just to be with and be aware of whatever sensation, whatever sense you have on whatever level, physically, emotionally, energetically, intellectually, on any level, intuitively or otherwise. What comes within you when I make this statement? The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. I wonder if you can, I'll make it again here in just a moment. Just notice there might be, I think of it as physical resonance. I can feel it in my body. Maybe you can as well. Maybe there are other ways that you're aware of it. It's almost like a yes. For me, my hands and feet buzz and tingle, and other parts of my body as well. For other people, there's no physical sensation, just a sense of knowing, or even almost an intuitive sense of the space that they occupy or their field, if that language makes sense to you. Here's the statement again: the breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. Just be with that. There we go. Notice there's the yes on one level. And intellectually, your mind, well, sure, oxygen, lungs, bloodstream, cells in the body. Okay, makes sense. And just notice it. The other ways that you might be getting a yes, or even seeing it, visualizing it, imagining it, seeing it intuitively. Many, seriously, it is perfect. And then slowly shift your perspective from inside the lungs and then outside your body, and then maybe even drift off a ways, maybe a number of miles or kilometers above the earth, and just begin noticing the breath of the planet is serving you. The breath of the planet is supplying that cue of breath that you're breathing in. And the breath of the planet is doing the same for your neighbor and your neighbor's neighbor, everyone else in the dwelling where you are, everyone else in your geographic region and the community, the state or the province or whatever your area is. And then even if you extend out, of course, because the breath of the planet doesn't limit itself to the continent or the hemisphere, and indeed the entire planet. And we can say with each breath, you are directly connected to all of these people, everyone on the planet, without exception. And this might be a very resonant idea for you. Oh, beautiful. Another way that I can experience my innate connection to everyone. And it might also be kind of a dissonant idea for you. Oh my goodness, I've been having these thoughts about these people over there who don't believe as I do, or see the world differently, or aren't willing to acknowledge, or whatever. There are so many different divisive things that are going on in the world right now. It's generally true, isn't it? But here we have this invitation to set that divisiveness, those polarities aside, and just be in the visceral experience of a deeper truth of our innate connection with one another. And certainly, one way we can perceive that innate connection is just the fact of our breath. The breath you're breathing in is, in fact, shared with every single person on the planet. And it's not just the people that are alive today, is it? It's everyone who's ever lived and everyone who will ever live. We could say with each breath, you are connected to all those people. And it's not just people either, is it? The breath of the planet is serving everyone and everything: animals, insects, trees, dirt, water, fish, everything. The breath doesn't really care, does it? The breath of the planet is serving everyone and everything equally. In the same way, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything above, upon, and within the planet. Indeed, you may even begin to have a sensation of breathing by and for. And then there's that point at which perhaps awareness begins to expand, and it's not just the breath of the planet, but the breath of the cosmos. For at the very edge of our atmosphere, that breath touches space and in turn every other part of space. And eventually we can say, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything throughout all of creation, including that energy that underwrites everything else, the divine, a light, perhaps at a great distance, coming closer with each breath that you draw in. Eventually, that light comes in such clarity that you can perceive those twin frequencies that together comprise that divine light. The frequency of the divine itself and the frequency of perfect health intertwine such that there is no separating one from the other. And not just perfect health as we might conceive of it as human beings, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. Every iteration of perfect health, known and unknown, these two frequencies intertwined, expressing as this light, the light eventually reaching out and connecting into you, perhaps at your nostrils initially with each breath drawing in, and then instantaneously throughout every level of your being, known and unknown, the light, be it a waveform or a particle, reaching out to each of those smallest aspects of you with an invitation. Come return to your natural state of resonance and alignment, and with that, those artifacts of dissonance appearing to fall away and gather at the universal drain. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The river is flowing. Let's begin. Mm. Such a beautiful wave of this experience of the divine fractal. And if you're thinking, well, what wave are you talking about, Ken? I'm referring to that sensation within me of how I'm perceiving all of us in this circle. From my perspective, whether you're participating live or on replay, it's all now. And I am having an experience of the aggregate of the sum of all of us gathered here now. And what a beautiful experience it is. What an extraordinary expression of divine presence. And my mouth is buzzing. And I don't know that that mouth buzz is really about something I need to be talking about, but maybe a conversation that is unfolding in the circle, one that perhaps can rise to the level of language. Perhaps there are some things that I can reflect on. One thing I will share with you is that I offer my perspective only if it's of interest to you and only in service to your own spiritual growth, your own exploration. I'm acutely aware of the fact that we are all limited in our perceptual view, and certainly I'm no exception. And so the best I can say is that from my perspective, what I share with you is how I perceive the divine, the world, our relationship with one another, what is available to us. And I offer that to you in service to your exploration and experience of your relationship with the divine within you by whatever name, whatever context, whatever tradition, whatever meaning that has for you, that you might open more fully and have a more complete experience of that divine presence, not to try to point out some element of scarcity or limitation to your current relationship with the divine by whatever name, but in recognition of that infinite well, that infinite expression that is constantly expanding and expressing more fully in and through and as each of us, if only we'll open up and allow that expression to come forth, to open in the interior and in the exterior of our lives. Okay. I'm going to scroll back to the beginning of the comments here because I'm finally ready to say hi. Looking forward, one saying hi on Twitter. How fun. Thank you for checking in. Judy Clinton, always great to hear from you. Judy says, great news. Hi from Judy. I think Judy was commenting on my announcement at the beginning of our time together today that this is the last time that I'm going to be live streaming on Facebook for the foreseeable future. It just is getting to be a very divisive dynamic. It's possible. I'm in the process of evaluating whether or not we want to set up sort of a private group in the context of Facebook, because as a platform, there are many people who feel drawn to engage there. But in terms of me being active, live streaming in a public way, I'm going to stop that for the time being. I don't expect that me stopping is going to change Facebook's opinion about anything that they're doing, from the advertising they're supporting and so on. But if having sort of a funny thing, I don't know if you guys are having this experience, but the camera seems to be cutting in and out. I don't really know what's going on there. I apologize for that. Gary, it's great to hear from you. Angelica is checking in. Always wonderful to hear from you. Looking forward, one is saying just what I needed, a meditation. And Yanya's checking in on Facebook, just saying, I can't leave a message on YouTube, so I hope you see this. Hello. Hi, Yanya. It's great to see you. Glad you're here. I guess I was thinking there might be more comments, but none at the time being. So listen, if there are other people that want to check in, obviously we've spent a little bit of time kind of sinking in, opening up to that interior resonance. I'm happy to chat about anything. In terms of the divine fractal, that's sort of the idea for today, but that idea could take us anywhere we want. Um, Judy, oh, interesting. Okay, I don't know what's going on. Sherry is saying, hi, Ken. It's great to see you, Sherry. Thanks for being here. Angelica is saying the sound is cutting out too. And Judy's saying that. And Susan is saying, yes, the stream is cutting in and out. Oh, well, maybe I should have restarted my computer. I thought I had a stable connection to the internet today, but there is a little bit of disruption. Well, listen, I'm sorry about that. Perhaps there's a little bit of noise in the field. I'll see if I can't clear that up as we open and continue our conversation. In terms of the divine fractal, it's interesting. A friend of mine responded to from my heart today. And by the way, if you're not receiving email from me, if you're not on the newsletter, you can always sign up. It's free to sign up. And the way to do that is at kenwstone.com/newsletter. And I want to share a little bit. Uh, Valerie is saying, you're fine in Erie, Pennsylvania. Hallelujah. I'm glad to hear it. Thanks, Valerie. I want to share a little bit about what this friend wrote, this member of the community wrote, um, because it seems to, I think other people probably have a way of summarizing what I'm trying to communicate more effectively. I think it's hilarious. I wonder if that's true for every spiritual messenger. I think we're all spiritual messengers, as I've said many times, and it's always an interesting challenge to try to articulate things as they're coming in. So here's a distillation of my message from today, and I think probably overall from Mark, who's a good friend and a member of the community. He let's see. Oh, he's making a comment. He has a pre-release copy of the book. He said, I've set your book aside for now, as I don't seem to have the concentration to read with everything going on right now. I did laugh when I thought about it this morning, because your spirituality affects me even when I don't actually read your writings. For me, I synopsized your message this way: be in touch with God when you can. When you can't, realize you are anyway. Accept whatever it is he has in store for you, for whatever reason, and be patient with yourself when you don't feel in accordance with his plan or grace. When you are in accordance, it may feel great and be exciting, or it may not. And he says, for me, it's a visceral kind of thing. I What a great summary. Thanks for sharing that, Mark. I so appreciate you, appreciate our friendship and the time we've had in the past to share together. I hope we do get a chance to connect more this summer. Our normal way of connecting may not open up, but thank you so much for your email and your synopsis. It's a beautiful thing, and I think it's spot on. Better said than anything I've been able to put together. Okay, if anyone else wants to check in, if there are any other comments, if anyone has a question about anything going on, I'm more than happy to reflect on it. Otherwise, here in the next couple of minutes, I say we sink in a little bit more. I'm going to set aside language, and we'll drop into transmission at a deeper level, which, if this is your first time, is really just an opportunity for you to encounter, perhaps viscerally. I'm trying to remember more and more. There are always some people who are not having a visceral experience of the divine within when we're in transmission. But just because you can't feel it in your body doesn't mean you're not having that experience, even if you're not aware of it on any level. Sometimes it's so subtle that the only way to realize it or to recognize it is to sort of take a backwards look at very subtle changes. I can't tell you how many times, even with people I've worked with one-on-one in private session, when I've asked them, we'll do a session and then a week later we'll do another session and a week later and so on. And so one of the ways I might open the session is, what's been unfolding since we last gathered. And oftentimes I've heard this comment, well, I wondered what we were going to focus on in today's session. And now that you're asking me, I'm kind of reflecting on this. None of this is prompted by me. It's not like I'm saying, well, has something unfolded in this part of your life or that part of your life? Sometimes this opening into this visceral experience of divine within is so subtle and also so comprehensive that the shifts are sort of difficult to identify. But stay with it if you're up for it. If you're feeling resonance with it on whatever level, I really it just cut out again, but I think I'm back. Gary's checking in on Facebook. Let's see what he has to say. Since it's the last time for a while, thank you very much for your efforts here on this platform. Love you, man. Thanks, Gary. Lots of love to you as well. Wonderful to hear from you. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. And listen, I want to recognize that there is this cutting in and out going on. Who knows what's happening? Gremlins in the system or whatever. But whether or not you're hearing what I'm saying is not the most important thing. It's just about sinking into the experience. And actually, this next part of our time together, which I don't know how long it'll last, I just sort of follow guidance, but let's say the next 10 or 15 minutes, for sure, maybe, right? Maybe it's a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter. But for the next little while, mostly, I'm guessing this is going to be in silence unless I'm prompted to say something. So even if the camera cuts out, I mean, maybe you've got your eyes closed, but if you happen to notice the camera cutting out or you don't hear me breathing for a moment, don't let that disrupt what's going on. Because really, as exciting as it is to sit here on live stream with you, and I do love this opportunity to connect in this way, really the most important connection here isn't even in the context of the community. I mean, if we were here gathered in person on retreat right now, the most important part of our experience together does not relate to the other people in the room. It is, from my perspective, it's all about that interior relationship with self. It's all about that interior relationship with the divine. It's all about what's unfolding there. That, from my perspective, is way more important. Yes, I feel deep resonance personally with you. I love our connection and so on. It's great fun, makes me giggle, makes me cry and so on, cry tears of wonder and awe and so on. That's all beautiful. But the thing that is most profound to witness from my perspective and certainly to celebrate is of you opening to that deep interior um, emptiness, the deep resonant space within, the place where you encounter the peace of And just to underscore it, we got a thing cut out again. It's so funny. Yeah. Great comment here, Susan. This is something I want to address before we go further. I have been noticing that the more I sink in, the more fear comes up, the fear of losing myself. Such an important thing to acknowledge and recognize. And, we could talk about why that happens for just a minute. Uh, the and let's do that. Let me just do that for just a second. So, in that interior space, in that emptiness, is deeper intimacy with the divine. And the separate self, which some people would label as the ego, I actually think there's a whole expression of the ego. And again, we talked about that in previous group gatherings and so on. I'm happy to dive into it more if it's something you want to explore in greater depth right now. But from my perspective, the separate self, the separate ego, the separate self, the aspects of each of us as human beings that identifies or has the experience of being cut off or separate from the divine, from self and from others. The separate self has its experience moving into that deep interior of pending death, and that death from the separate self's perspective uh, is terrifying. And it's phenomenally instructive for supporting the integration process, because what gets enlivened around that fear of losing self, as you say it, Susan, that enlivening of loss of self, is what it does is it illuminates what is showing up to be integrated. And first, it must be transmuted from my perspective. I'm always speaking from my perspective. From my perspective, those wounds or traumas, or however we want to refer to them, I'm not trying to create drama around it by using this language. I'm just trying to give it a label that is easily identifiable and perhaps resonates in a broader way. Those traumas are held inside something that feels a little prickly, right? It might be emotional, it might be fear, sadness, other sort of negative emotions like this. And as long as we're in resistance to those negative emotions, this dynamic persists, this wound persists, and it actually can grow over time and begin to consume us. Whereas if we transmute it, and I'll talk about how to do that here in just a moment, if we allow it to transmute, then there's an opportunity to integrate the gift that is held inside that fear, and the gift is an aspect of the whole self. It's hidden away inside this wound or trauma, but it's not accessible to be integrated, to be embodied, until we transmute. And the transmutation can happen. There are a number of different ways to transmute. But in terms of my awareness of how God moves through me, one of the ways that is really a significant pathway for transmutation is when we're doing soul embodiment work, which is always going on when we're in transmission together. And as the soul, as your essence, your individuated essence, spirit, if you want to think of it that way, if soul doesn't resonate with you, as it descends, it enlivens everything in your body and your being, and including these wounds, but also all the things that are actually who you really are as well. And as those things begin to become enlivened, the stuff that is, let's say, not you, um, also is enlivened. And then there's an opportunity to feel and experience it fully. And that feeling and experience can happen on many different levels: emotionally, physically, energetically, and so on, spiritually, on all these levels. And the degree to which we allow ourselves to express and feel that fully while embodied, while sustaining soul embodiment, which is something that's happening naturally, or um, by God's grace, I guess would be another way of saying it. When we're together in transmission, that will transmute, it will burn up, it will consume that aspect or that shell that is not who you are, that you may integrate and embody that part of you. And the fact that you're feeling this is such a beautiful thing. I suspect it doesn't feel beautiful to you, Susan, but it is, from my perspective, a very, very beautiful thing. it's a sign that there is an opening going on, an opportunity to shift from, let's say, the surface level noise to the deeper stuff. And when we begin integrating that deeper stuff, something truly profound opens up within each one of us. So thank you for sharing that, Susan. I'm so grateful for your vulnerability and your presence in the world and also here in the community in this circle. Okay. I'll check in with comments and so on again before we wrap up for today. But for now, I'm just going to close my eyes again and I invite you to do the same. Let's take a deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath, just let go of everything that has been the experience of the divine within, the experience of who you really are. And only you can say that for sure. And probably initially, maybe you can't even say it. Maybe it's not even at the level of language, but that doesn't mean you aren't experiencing it. Let's take another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, just release all of you into the arms of the divine, all the way out to the count of 8. And I'm going to drop language as we move into deeper transmission together. Thank you for making yourself part of this circle, for your presence, for the honor and the privilege of witnessing you, and for the opportunity to gather as a community in this way on this day, right now. If there are things coming up that you'd like to ask about or reflect on, don't think that it's going to be a disruption to make a comment or something like that. I won't be aware of it until I open my eyes again after a while. And for everyone participating, their choice, your choice to open your eyes or not. My encouragement is to keep them closed unless something is coming up that just really is pushing on you to give voice to or ask about. Ultimately, the most profound connection that exists with the divine for you is within you. No one else, bar none, has a more profound connection with the divine for you than you do for yourself. And this is falls in every level of awareness and experience and insight and so on. Sometimes it can be helpful to remind yourself with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything throughout the cosmos, including that energy that underwrites everything else, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, the invitation to return to a state of resonance and alignment, the artifacts of dissonance falling away, departing out through the universal drain. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. The river is flowing. You may recall the shorthand of divine connecting breath, the longhand, of course. With each breath, you are connected, everyone, everything, the divine, the light, and so on. The shorthand, the river is flowing, came to me a long time ago when all of a sudden in my awareness, I saw an image of a river and walking up to it. And I realized some people might be thinking, well, if I hold the right intention, my life will get better. And you can see if you sit by the river and hold an intention, the river is flowing. So, too, if you turn your back on the river and don't gaze upon it, still the river is flowing. If you walk away from it, forget it ever existed, of the peace, the resonance that you felt in its presence, still the river is flowing. So too with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything throughout the cosmos, including that energy that underwrites everything else, the divine, the light, the twin frequencies, connecting into each of the smallest aspects of you on every level, known and unknown. The river is flowing. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The river is flowing. You might hold a divine intention or an intention for the divine for your own life or for another. You can drop it. The river is flowing. You can turn your back on the divine and walk away. Still, the divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. The river is flowing. Return to the river whenever you want, consciously or not. Still, the river is flowing. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. And if we think about this in the context of surfing the divine fractal, an image that just came spontaneously as I was reflecting in my writing this week for the community. Surfing the divine fractal could be said surfing or being in resonance with every aspect of life, being in flow with life. Doesn't require anything. In fact, it requires nothing, no thing. As we release the breath at the beginning of our time together, that is reinforced powerfully. No thing, nothing. With or without your focus, with or without your conscious awareness, the river is flowing. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. And so it is for everyone. So to be surfing that divine fractal, to be in flow with the divine fractal, is to realize nothing is required of you. You do not need to effort. You do not need to mold. You do not need to create. You are the divine creative expression. You don't have to impose your will. It is God's will expressing through all of us without exception. No one is an exception to this truth. No thing is an exception to this truth. Whether we recognize that or feel it or not, it is the truth. Everything is held in the divine field. Everything, everything, and everyone. What an honor it is to sit with you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity for us to sit together, to resonate, to be in community together, to explore together. I'm going to invite you to begin returning the universal plug. I'll do the same as I begin bringing this transmission to a close. If this video resonates with you, I invite you to give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm. It helps YouTube share it with others. And in the same way, if you're interested in being more formally connected to the channel, I invite you also to subscribe. You'll be notified every time I go live. Lives happen every week at 5 p.m. Eastern, or at least most weeks. I took last week off. Most weeks at 5 p.m. Eastern. You never know when I'm going to come on in addition to that. If you'd like to be notified, a subscription is the best way to do that. And in the description, many other ways to connect, ask questions in writing, to subscribe to this, to the newsletter, and so on. So grateful for the opportunity to sit and explore with and without words with you. Plug all the way in, transmission to a close now until we're together again very soon. Peace. Bye for now. I'm trying to do two things at once. Bye for now.